A terrific panel hearing about what's going on in the Bay Area. Thanks everyone for being here today. We've got a great panel. I get a ton of questions about what's going on at Liga MX, and I have three people here that are going to give you the answers to those questions. So, sitting next to me, first of all, we have the president of Liga MX, Mikel Arriola. Next up, Tylis. Maybe you know him from DC United, but also Club Necaxa, and recently appointed CEO of Apollo Sports Capital. And on the end, we have Alejandro, I will get this right, Irarragorri. Alejandro told me to call him Alex. That's easier. Chairman of Orlegi Sports, which owns Atlas and Santos Laguna, two Liga MX clubs. So, Al, I want to start with you. Back in 2021, you closed the sale of Club Necaxa, first American group to invest in Liga MX. What did you see? What was the investment thesis then when you were looking at this?
Look, it was definitely interesting, sort of being the first Americans to look at a team and ultimately buy a club in Mexico. I, at the time, was an owner at DC United, and from my standpoint, I think I look at sports a little different than others. For me, this purely, I'll call it purely economic endeavor versus I think you have a lot of intangible reasons why other people will engage in buying sports teams and being part of clubs. And I remember a specific anecdote, actually, where we were at a DC United meeting, and I'm going to get these numbers not exactly right, but directionally accurate. It was a sort of overview of viewership in the United States. So it was, how many people are watching each league in the United States, and I think MLS was a couple 100,000 viewers per match. You had the Premier League, that was, I don't know, 600,000 or 700,000 viewers per match, and then it had Liga MX, and it said 900,000 viewers per match. And I vividly remember nudging the person next to me, who was going to remain nameless, and I said, "Hey, you have a typo in your deck." I said, "You added an extra zero." Like, I actually thought, I was like, 90,000 kind of intuitively made more sense to me. And he nudged me back and said, "No, the information's right." And that kind of sparked I would say, year-long deep dive into Mexico, meeting a lot of the owners, meeting the commissioner, ultimately getting comfortable with investing, just given nobody had done it before. And a handful of years later, I'm still as bullish as ever in terms of what this league can be. We've done a lot, but I think there's still a long way to go to ultimately unlock all the value that's in Liga MX.
Well, Alejandro, I want to ask you, you're in the marketplace right now. You hired a bank to sell one of the two clubs that Orlegi Sports owns. What has been the reception in the marketplace right now, and can you give us any update on what's going on in that sale process?
Sure, and I appreciate the effort on the last name. I know it's a very complicated task.
I know we just talked about it before, and I butchered the whole thing. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I mean, just trying to talk about what Al was saying. My first idea of investing in soccer in Mexico or in sports in Mexico came from me living in London back in the 90s, and London, well, actually the UK, trying to change that grey league that had a lot of problems to this Premier League. And then that idea of going to conquer markets thousands of miles away. So my thought at that time was, when Mexico gets serious, I mean, we're the only country that actually serve naturally to markets. Today, there are 40 million Mexican Americans in this country, and over 125 million Mexicans that take this sport as their religion, as their inspiration point. So we share with the U.S. 2,000 miles of border. And just like using numbers, 40 million Mexican Americans here is the same amount of people that live in Spain. So when you think about that, it's very natural what we can build together. And we had the opportunity and the responsibility to be multi-team owners in the same league. When we found Atlas, this is a historically team that was suffering a lot It didn't have infrastructure at the time. It didn't have good TV contracts or sponsorship contracts. It was losing money, and it was maybe 17 in terms of revenue on our league. So we saw this great opportunity. There's a huge fan base both in Mexico and in the US. So we started working towards those objectives, changing the mentality, changing people. This is a team that hadn't been champion in 70 years. And it's a team that actually provides a lot of the Mexican players because of being in Guadalajara and being a team that has been there for over 100 years. So we started working on that. We started building the right training facilities, the right infrastructure. We started doing things differently towards our TV networks and towards our sponsorships. And as a result of focusing on that process, we were champions back-to-back after this curse of 70 years without a championship that the fans really suffered. Now, Atlas is maybe 10th in terms of revenues, and we realized this has to be a team that maybe should be 5 or 6, and but also we think that we've completed our process, and there was an agreement with the owners to finish with the multi-team ownership in the same league. So we decided to go openly about it. It's just a great team, a great city, and we are making progress on that process. Can
you give us a sense of ballpark revenues, annual revenues for the club?
Yeah, I mean, when we took Atlas, revenues were shy to $20 million at that time, and we are closer with regular season because don't forget, the playoffs make a very important part of our revenues. And so we've doubled that revenue now, and we've invested in this Academia Aga that has won a lot of awards, and is probably one of the best training facilities in the Americas, really.
Got it. Mikel, you're trying to get away from multi-club ownership, right? Are we going to see more team sales in Liga MX over the next year or two?
Well, we're going to see more due to the best reasons, due to market reasons, not regulation. Because now the market is looking to Liga MX as a generator, a natural generator of income, because you can say that Liga MX teams actually make money.
That's pretty unusual in global soccer.
And second, that we are a net exporter of football to the richest economy in the world. So the value of that is the main reason why the market is looking towards Mexico. We have had an operation this year. Mark Spiegel entered to Querétaro. No, we have had the operation of Tylis in Necaxa. And now we can see that naturally the market is solving that issue that generated a lot of questions in our league. And the other thing is that we have built a new property in the US market, which is Leagues Cup. Now we play around 70 games in the US in the summer of an official tournament. So our brands now are promoted in this country, and we are the first soccer league in terms of viewership in the US, along with the national team, which represents 3 times the viewership of the US national team, no? If you compare it. And the other uniqueness of our system is that I am the president of the league, but I am also the president of the federation. So we generate the income that comes from the federation, from the national team, is now the main source of finance of development in our under categories. So that is very important because our presence of both league and national team in the US is becoming the main generator of our growth. And now, after a process that we lived the last 18 months, we have a new valuation. The market valuated our league in $13 billion, and the market offered an advance of 10% of that to the league in order to have a presence in terms of capital, but a presence, and the hypothesis of that investment was two-digit growth from here to the future of Liga MX.
Well, you bring up investment in Liga MX. We have all the important players here. We first wrote about this in Sportico in 2022, about Apollo looking at a $1+ billion investment in Liga MX. Potential vote didn't happen at the end of 2024. These conversations are still going on. I've talked to other people who said there's other institutional investment interest in the league. Mikel, what can you tell us about what's going on in terms of potential institutional investment in your league?
I think if you talk about institutional investment, you have to talk about institution building, right? And now, as of January, we started the process of institution building by means of strengthening the decision-making process. The owners of our league want to be more involved in the decision of management, and we are now looking for a board meeting in December where we will generate a huge reform in terms of corporate governance in our league. And that represents that as of January, we will continue with the process of inviting capital from the US and from the rest of the world in order to generate a process by means of which we could magnify our properties. The magic word from here to the future is centralization of our assets. And if we do that in the best and most transparent way, we will generate, or we'll be talking about 3 times the income that is generated by the teams now towards the future.
Well, Kurt, can I just chime in on a couple of things?
Do.
So just want to underscore a couple of things Mikel said. One is that the vast majority of Liga MX teams actually make money, right? Like we've owned Necaxa for 5 years. We have not been worse than flat. So we've either made money or been break even, and we've had some good years and we've had some bad years. The second thing is that in the national team, right? Like we all own 1/18 of the national team. Highly unusual, but highly unique and highly lucrative.
And those revenue streams filter down to the clubs.
They filter down to the clubs. And then the Apollo situation, obviously a little different with my currency, but sort of unrelated to me. Yeah, look, it had nothing to do with it at the time. Unrelated to me, there was at least one pretty sophisticated institution that thought this thing was worth $13 billion. There are 18 teams. Everyone here could do the math. That's a pretty chunky valuation per team, effectively. So I think when you kind of look at the economics of the teams, the fact that we own part of the league, and that you've had it wasn't just Apollo, it was a handful of institutions that effectively validated this league at the double-digit billions of dollars valuation, I think sort of speaks a lot to where we're going.
And so what's the holdup? We can make a deal right here on the stage, no?
Look, I joking aside, I think a deal comes to fruition. It has to work for everybody. I think you have a group of motivated owners who all have a point of view, but ultimately are commercial animals like most of us. And I think if I were a betting man, I would say in 2026 you will see a broader Liga MX deal, perhaps with Apollo.
Thank you. Well, one of the things we looked at doing a franchise valuations list on Liga MX clubs, and a lot of how people thought about the league was what the timeline was on centralization. So Alejandro, how do you think about centralization? Is this absolutely critical for Liga MX?
Look, I think time.
And how do you get the big clubs on board? I mean, Major League Baseball is dealing with the same issue right now. They're going to try to centralize more revenue. How do you get the Yankees and Dodgers on board? In your case, how do you get Chivas, Club America on board with centralization?
Yeah, I think that running fast is not necessarily the right way. I've been involved in this for 20 years. And if I start telling you where we were back in 2005 and where we are today, there's a lot of progress that has been done. In my opinion, the deal didn't go through for two reasons. Well, first, I'd like to clarify, there was no team equity involved in that deal. The 13 billion valuation was just part of the revenues of the team that were going to be committed through a certain perimeter. And part of the problem was that they tried to do too much. And so the perfect is not always possible. So I think that there were a lot of revenue streams that shouldn't have been placed on that perimeter and basically made the deal not feasible for some clubs. Second, I think that the history in Mexico has been one very successful because soccer in Mexico is by far the leading sport and the leading sport in the U.S. as well. Don't forget, even ourselves selling the TV rights team by team directly into the U.S. market, the U.S. market represents for us 60% of our TV rights revenues. Only the U.S. market. And that is maybe 2.5 times what the MLS teams are making on their global TV rights. And so that's shocking, right? And we're selling team by team. If we were able to sell as a league, this obviously would be increased, not only for the U.S., but also to other countries of the world. So the opportunity is very clear. So this is the issue is there. Now, how do we do it? So there are a lot of agreements between teams and these TV networks, and the TV networks deserve to be part of the deal. So we need to find a way, and that's what Mikel has been trying to build, particularly in the last year, very successfully, because now there's peace amongst the owners, and I think we're going to get there. Now, are we going to get there in 6 months? Maybe not. But are we going to get there before 2030? Maybe yes. That would be my guess. And the opportunity is huge. And the other thing is, in terms of our market in the U.S., and this is something I've spoke about it many, many times. I think MLS and Liga MX have a great possibility of building further. Obviously, Leagues Cup is great. But I think that our challenge is not the other sports. Our challenge is we're competing against European teams and we're competing against South American teams. And for whatever reason, we are neighbors. We share a lot of things. 2,000 miles of border. We share a market. And I think MLS and Liga MX would be stronger together developing this market and actually being stronger against the challenge of these other leagues. And the other important thing is, as of last year, basically, or the beginning of this year, now we can also play official games in U.S. soil. And that's a big changer because that will put us closer to our fans. And our fans are really asking for that. So how do we do that? Together with MLS, hopefully, or not? I don't know.
And when you say together with MLS, you're talking about a merger of leagues or another structure?
Well, the first time I said this about merger was in Leaders in Football, like maybe 10 years ago, and I got a call from FIFA saying, don't talk about that. I don't know if the merger is the right way, but I think that we have created a lot of value with MLS through this Leagues Cup. And I said once to Clark Hunt, so his father was able to put together the Super Bowl and join those two leagues in NFL, right? And that was, I don't know, maybe 60 years ago. And I said to him, look, in the short term, it's definitely better for us. In the medium term, I think it's better for MLS, meaning doing this together. But in the long term, I'm sure it's better for both. So that is the way I look at it. At that.
Mikel, I want you to touch on Liga MX suspended promotion and relegation coming out of COVID. I guess. And at the time, it wasn't clear if this was a permanent decision. Can you walk us through what was behind doing that and then where we are going forward? Are we going back to promotion and relegation in the league?
Well, let me tell you that that policy has generated a lot of progress in terms of investment in our league. So that decision of 2020 was litigated recently by a group of teams of the second division. And the tribunal, the sports tribunal, confirmed two things. First, the board of owners of Liga MX has the authority in order to decide on that issue, right? And the second is that the tribunal confirmed that that decision was done in terms of FIFA regulation, that decision was the correct one, and that decision has been done in accordance to the international regulation. So that is a great decision for us, because that emphasizes the authority of the owners in order to generate whatever policy they would think for the progress of our league. So currently, the power of that decision is in the board, and the system stays as it is regulated since 2020.
Okay. You want to add to that?
No, I mean, I'll speak for one owner and two others here. Like, look, the lack of promotion relegation is important for certainty, right? I think U.S. investors are certainly used to that.
We've seen it in MLS, right? It creates a floor value, where that is much higher than in the Premier League.
Yep. No, absolutely. And it gives people the confidence to invest, right? It not only, I think, gives people the confidence to buy their clubs, but to make real long-term investment decisions, right? I think if you had real relegation, your time horizon just changes, right? I've seen that with clubs. We have stuff we've done in Europe, and we have stuff we've done here, and the conversation's different. The thought process is different, and you wanna be making those long-term decisions. So from my standpoint, I don't see how this ownership group goes back to that. Can we have some scenario where there is promotion? Maybe. We only have 18 teams. Right. If there are clubs that are sufficiently capitalized, have the right infrastructure, the right teams behind them, don't want to speak for the other 17 teams here, but I think I certainly could see that as something that we do in the future as well.
Yeah, I think the magic word is promotion. And you have, I think, two ways to get promoted. First, by means of acquiring a multi-ownership club, which solves a lot of problems. And then the owners can generate their own rules in order to incorporate new owners. And the first rule must be investment in the league, in order to
investment in facilities,
in order to generate better infrastructure to elevate the game day for our fans.
Yeah, I'd like to add to Mikel, because he's very humble, but he's taken, after this chaos that we lived in December when the Apollo deal didn't go through his leadership, we have established a very clear pathway. So the pathway is, let's one team, one owner, right? And we've been working towards that. And there's a full agreement between the owners to get that done. Now, when you get that done, the other thing is, let's go for consolidated TV rights. And not only TV rights, but other commercial properties might be included in that. And then the third thing is, let's really take care of our U.S. market. That, as I said, today, in actual conditions, without playing other than the Leagues Cup official games in U.S. soil, represents 60% of our TV rights. So when you read that, and then we have to read the room, and for whatever reason, we're not in CONMEBOL, we're not in Europe, we are in CONCACAF. And CONCACAF means Canada, the US, Mexico, Central America, and the Caribbean. That's our reality in terms of how FIFA puts us together. And the biggest market for us is the US. And the US, the major sports teams, they play with special, specific rules, right? One of those is no relegation. So why would we fight against each other? I mean, I think it only debilitates our opportunity to grow and to grow together. So I think, again, if you read the room right, and we're going to finish with multi-team ownership in the league, going for consolidated TV and commercial rights, and taking care of the U.S. market, the fourth answers by itself.
That's a great close. We didn't even touch on World Cup, biggest sporting event in the world, coming to North America next year. But I really appreciate all three of you digging in to what's going on in Liga MX right now. Thank you.